We are going to have two sessions for today's summit. We'll have the first part where our speakers are going to give us their 5-minute speeches based on the theme and what they do. And then we are going to have a second part where we have panelists who are young women who work in the area of menstrual hygiene. They are activists, they are advocates, they are people working on the ground. And they are going to share with us what they have been working on, the lessons learned, the partnerships formed, and how they're making impact in their communities. We are live on Facebook, so feel free to tell your friends to watch the discussion, those who can't join us here. We have a limited number of 100 people, so only 100 people can join us, but those who can't join can watch us live on Facebook. As the discussions go on, you can tweet about what we are discussing on Twitter with the hashtag MHD Africa, which is Menstrual Hygiene Day, and that's happening on Wednesday, so MHD Africa as a hashtag, and then Sisters Diary as a hashtag, and please tag Sisters Diary Off. The off is OFF, it's the shortened form of official, so Sisters Diary Off, at Sisters Diary Off on Twitter. And yeah, let's get people knowing about this very important discussion. So with us as speakers today, we have Diana Nchua Chumesi, who is the host of this summit and also the executive director and founder of Sisters Diary. We also have Asia Saripra, who is the advocacy officer of Marie Stopes, and she's also their youth focal lead. We also have Mandy Sangera, I hope I got the surname right. She's an international human rights activist. And we have Beatrice Boachi Yadom, who is the grants manager of the African Women's Development Fund. Joining us as a panelist, we have Hasna Jaga. I hope I got the name right. If I didn't, please forgive me. She's a sexual reproductive health and rights advocate. She's also a member of YPA, and she's from Morocco, North Africa. We also have Ines Chakunte Yemga, who is Cameroonian. She's the General Secretary of YALDA. And yeah, Cameroon is in West Africa, so she's representing the West African bloc. We also have Eunice Ejapoma Chere, who is Ghanaian. She is a period poverty advocate. She's the founder of the Chere Foundation, and she is also representing the West African bloc. And lastly, we have Caroline Owashaba. She's a team leader of Action for Youth Development Uganda, and she's representing the Eastern African bloc. So welcome, ladies. Without wasting much time, we are going to get the discussions rolling, and we are starting with the host, Diana. So Diana Nchua Chumesi, let's hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Is my video working? Can you all hear me? Okay. So, good day, and thank you all for joining us today for the very first Menstrual Health African Summit. I am Diana Nchua Chumesi. I am the executive lead for Sisters Diary. Sisters Diary is a women-led organization that is on a journey of inspiring the next generation of African women. Yes, today we begin a journey of mobilization. We begin a journey of collaboration, and we begin a journey for collective good. Over the years, menstrual health campaign or menstrual hygiene campaign has been drumming across the globe for decades now. And in Africa, there has been a lot of success stories. At the back of this success story, we embarked on a survey to find out why the progress in Africa is on a slower pace. So upon consultations with donor partners and grassroots organizations, one thing became paramount. And because of that one thing, that is why we are here today. That one thing led us to organize this summit. That one thing was collaboration. Collaboration amongst ourselves as grassroots organizations, collaboration amongst ourselves as organizations and donor partners to roll out a much broader, a much bigger menstrual health campaign. So today, I welcome you all once again to the summit. Today we are here to dialogue on how best we can mobilize, how best we can re-strategize, and how best we can roll out a much bigger and broader advocacy campaign within the menstrual hygiene blog. So welcome once again, and I hope that we all have a very fruitful, holistic conversation. Thank you. So Benewa, over to you. Benewa. So unmute yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry for the hitches. So we'll continue with Mandy.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Hi, everybody. It's Mandy Sangira here, and it's a great honor to be speaking at your Global African Summit around women's health and reproductive health. And it's so important that we are talking about this issue today. On average, a woman will bleed 7 years of her lifetime. So we can't ignore this. As we will learn through listening to other speakers, young women will lose so much days of education, and especially in Africa where education is not always a priority, because actually young girls are pulled out of school to look after families, to support the family. So there's a lot of other issues that have been happening. So we are important that we talk about all of these issues today. So in some parts of the world, when we start our periods on menstruation, it's actually treated with great relief and people are celebrating it. But in some countries in Asia and Africa, it is actually greeted with great fear. Women are so upset and worried about having their periods, and they are worried about what does this mean? Because actually, if they've never had an education and you start bleeding and you're thinking, oh my God, what has happened to me? So again, it comes back to being educated and doing that. And one of the real big things that I have learned over the years is that many women are not having dignity during periods, especially within the African continent, within Asia, because actually things that I take for granted, having sanitary towels, having things where I can have a period with respect and dignity. I know that for many years that women in Africa have not been able to have a dignified period. They are using cloths, they will wear a couple of pairs of underpants, and they don't have the resources. So we need to look at that. But it's not even just about the sanitation, but it's about periods. It's about looking at water. And we don't even realize this, but actually a lot of the world population don't have clean water to wash their hands. Actually, that is 2.3 billion people don't have the right access to clean toilets and water around the world. And that figure is just far too many for my liking. Somebody who campaigns, we need to talk about this, because actually when I travel around the world, whether I go to Asia or the African continent or wherever I may go around the world, I see that actually things that I take for water for granted and other things, a lot of people don't have those privileges. And we need to look at how do we level the playing field? How can we look at people with respect and dignity going forward. So one of the things that I've been really quite upset about over in recent years is that actually, even in Britain and America and other countries, women are taxed for a basic sanitary product that she should have rights for, and she should not be taxed on that. But I know that in recent years, things have changed in the West. But in Africa and other countries in Asia, women don't have the luxury because they can't afford to do that. And as we're in a global pandemic around the world right now, COVID, we are all affected by this. So if we have to make a choice about having food and water on, you know, sanitary towels are just not a priority, sadly, for people in Africa. And we need to look at how do we treat women with respect and dignity during this most difficult time around the world today. It is really important that we look at leveling playing field for women around the world. Because I know that when a girl is educated, she's empowered to work herself out of poverty. But I also do a lot of work on violence against women, and I have seen women be victims of harmful practices, so early child marriage, FGM, and all of those practices. So a girl, as soon as she starts her period, her family in Afghanistan will pull her out of school and marry her off, and she might start her period at 11. We know that there's an awful practice of FGM that happens in Africa and in the Middle East and other parts of the world, and we know that millions of girls around the world go through this awful practice. If we don't have dignity and respect during our periods, we are prone to reproductive health problems. We've got more chance of having infections. So we need to look at those issues. Now, a lot of people will probably doubt me. They know that I'm a global campaigner. I travel all over the world to talk about issues. But actually, I'm somebody that had a lot of gynae problems. So when I was 21, I lost an ovary to cancer. And then as I was in my 20s and my 30s, I had something called endometriosis, which is a horrible disease where I was having really heavy periods. I could not get out of bed for days. I met a woman from Africa at the United Nations some years ago, and she started talking to me about having endometriosis. And actually, her family were able to buy her one pack of pads because, you know, they had a bit of money, but they couldn't understand why she was suffering so heavily with these periods. Why could she not make the pad stretch like anyone else? And that really hit a nerve with me, because actually I'm in a country where we have the health service and I have lots of things that I can have access to. And then it made me think about women, that actually we are leaving, especially in Africa, in Asia, and in South America, in countries where we have to choose between eating and sanitary towels. Are just not a priority for people. And if you don't have access to a toilet at school, you're not going to go to school. And in some countries in Asia and other countries, there's not even toilets. So how do we actually address that issue going forward? It is so important that we have this conversation today. It's really important that we look at it are going around, and I hope that we're going to smash the stigma around periods today. Just last year, the UK Home Office decided that women in prison can have free pads. Okay, they might have committed a crime, but they are still human beings. They still have a right to be treated with respect and dignity. So what I would like to learn about today is some of the innovative, creative things that you're going to come up with. I'm really learning from the advocates on the ground in Africa. I want to look at some pledges that we make. It's great to see some men in the conversation here today, because men have to play a role in tackling period poverty. There's a great guy that I've met who is from Africa, Chas, and he's been known as the pad man of Africa, and he's managed to make washable pads. So we need to look at sustainability. We need to look at how do we support women. I know that we've got a period cup and there's lots of different things happening. I know people are buying into this, but at the moment, COVID has taken over and the basic needs of women have been pushed further away. The conversations affecting women have been pushed further away. And we can no longer ignore that. So it's really important that we address this issue, we learn from this going forward. And I would also like to say, there is nothing honourable about abusing women. FGM is a child abuse, and it's so important that we actually call it out for what it is. An 8 to 9 year old girl going through the horrific, out-of-date practice has no place. There's a great campaigners around the world. We've got Hebo and so many other people around the world that are talking about this issue openly. In the UK, I was involved with launching an app which is called Petals, and it talks about harmful practices and FGM. I want to learn from you guys today and listen to you, because actually I don't feel like it's myself. I want to set the scene. I think it's important that we talk about the issues, we talk about the stigma, we look at solutions, and at the end of this summit that we have a call for action. It is so important that we have an open, honest debate around women's health and well-being. It is important that we talk about women's reproductive health, and it's important that we leave no woman behind, and especially women in Africa who have been forgotten for so long. So it's so important that we make sure that they have a seat at this table, they have a place at this conference, and that they are the ones that are telling us about the change. And please feel free to tag me on social media, on Twitter and stuff at Mandy_Sanghera1. I have been tweeting, you will find it. So it's really important. Let's take this conversation to other people outside of this summit today, and let's carry on this debate as we launch and talk about World Menstruation Day on the 28th, which is only a couple of days away. So let's think about what we can take away and have a bigger conversation. So thank you again. I'm looking forward to everyone's debate, and it's great to see that we have over 50 people here on Zoom. I know we had to cut the numbers, but people are joining us on Facebook and joining us on Twitter. So please join us and tag us in, and let's have this conversation going forward. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Very important point made. Sanitary pads, the cost of sanitary pads, the cost of menstrual hygiene products, making menstrual hygiene a conversation, looking at sustainable ways of providing solutions so that we don't keep running around about the same issue. Thank you, Mandy. Please do turn off your video if you are not speaking. This is to all participants. Kindly turn off your video. As Mandy mentioned, we are live on Facebook. You can also tweet at us using @Sisters Diary, and please use the hashtag #MHDAfrica and hashtag Sisters Diaries. To those who just joined, thank you very much for joining. We are live on the Menstrual Health Africa Summit, the first ever edition, and the theme for today is time for action, strengthening collaborations to maximize impact. Our next speaker is Asia Saripra. She's from Marie Stopes, which is an organization that is championing women's sexual reproductive health and rights, including menstrual hygiene. So Asia Saripra, you're on.
All right, thank you, Abna, and thank you everyone for having me. Can you hear me? All right. So I believe Dinah and Mandy has said a lot about the crucial role and the importance of menstrual hygiene in all the conversation in the general adolescent reproductive health. I would want to touch more, as we are looking at action and collaboration today, on how we can even situate the conversation in other conversations that we have, in other aspects that may not seem so much a menstrual hygiene agenda. Just last year, Marie Stopes Ghana, we started a project with the Chair Foundation, and I'm sure she will speak more about it. But some of the key things I picked on the ground, one of the girls that we interacted with, you asked what they do when she has her period. And what she said that struck me so much was, it just sits, it just comes. So she doesn't use sanitary towels, she doesn't use menstrual cup, she doesn't use menstrual cloth, it just comes. And this may seem weird in 2019 or 2020 Ghana, which is a middle income country, but this may be the situation for most girls across the country and even across the continent, especially now that we have 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds having periods. And they don't know what's happening to them. Some think it's just they're bleeding from the vagina. And some of them cannot even talk to their parents about it. I spoke to some girls who you ask where they get money for their sanitary clothes and they buy themselves. Their parents are not even aware they are menstruating. And that gives you an idea of how we've even mystified menstruation and the conversation around the reproductive system and the vagina and the female reproductive system, such that girls feel that if a young girl, 9-year-old, sees blood in her panty and she's going to talk to her parents about it, what if my mother says I'm a bad girl now? Because she doesn't know it's her period that's coming. She's not been taught in school. She has no idea what's happening to her. And so it gets sad how the conversation around reproductive health education, and I'm glad Mandy and Diana touched on that, has been situated almost to revolve around education and it's being a foreign agenda. It's almost as though the conversation around menstrual hygiene and menstrual health is left to menstrual health advocates. And sincerely speaking, if you look at even SRA organizations that champion family planning, safe abortion, sometimes, even though menstrual health is championed, it is almost regarded as a secondary matter. But menstrual health should not be a conversation just for menstrual health advocates. In fact, if you take an adolescent girl, or if you take a young person, we would all agree that adolescent reproductive health is like the cornerstone of their development. If you look at the national, and I will talk about Ghana, we have good policies for reproductive health. We have maternal health. We have health insurance that covers the aged. We have free SHS, of course, for education. Education is for young people. But if you look at the young person and the young adolescent herself, except for those that have chronic diseases or have serious health conditions, hardly would you see them frequenting the hospital for other health conditions. For the adolescent, reproductive health is like the major thing at that developmental stage. And so the best thing any country or any government can give a young person, an adolescent girl, is access to quality education on their reproductive health and access to menstrual hygiene products, and then all the safe water that Mandy spoke about and the things Dinah spoke about. And so even for development enthusiasts, people that are interested in health financing, people that are interested in health policy, menstrual health should be something we should all be interested in, because it is not just about health. Assuming a young girl has her period, she has no idea who to talk to. The next person she talks to is her peer. And so whatever that peer tells her is what she takes as fact. I mean, I've spoken about this a lot. It took me boarding school to have to see a sanitary pad in my chop box that my mother packed for me. She didn't speak to me about it or what it was. And so it was what my peers was doing. That's how I learned about menstruation. And that is the reality for most girls across the continent, because we don't do reproductive health education to even talk about it integrally, like in a more complex, in its complex nature. And so when we're talking about teenage pregnancy, when we're talking about access to higher education for girls, when we're talking about health financing, we should talk about menstrual health. Because of course, where does it all start? Teenage pregnancy is a result or a byproduct. You would have to ovulate before you can ever get pregnant. You would have to have experienced menarche or have your first period before you can even talk about, of course, girls can have sex before menstruation, but all those safe abortion, access to family planning, those are more or less products that stems from this whole thing of menstruation, something as simple as periods. And so if you are a development enthusiast interested in higher education for girls, or women and somebody interested in gender equality and women achieving socio-economic development and equality with all, if the girl drops out of school because she got pregnant, and of course because she had no education about her period and what the period means to her, of course the gender parity would not become one. We would not close that gap. And so for me today, and as we are talking about collaborations, what I would want to leave with you is not just look at menstrual health advocates or organizations that are interested in menstrual health as a participant. If you are interested in a menstrual health project, widen your scope. Look at people. How do you even get people interested in health policy to be interested in menstrual hygiene? How do you get development enthusiasts to be interested in menstrual hygiene? How do you approach organizations like mine, Marie Stopes? That's, of course, are interested in menstrual hygiene, but may have a more focus on access to family planning and other reproductive health services. How do you get such institutions to buy in? We must more and more look at how we communicate and package menstrual health. Of course, period poverty is important, it's crucial. Menstrual hygiene is important, is crucial. How do we situate the menstrual hygiene conversation into the broader development conversation, which is what it should be? How do we get others to come on board beyond ourselves? This is what I would want us to think through today and dialogue about today. If we are talking collaborations, how do we even get the Ministry of Finance to be interested in something like menstrual hygiene? Ghana now is working on the Global Financing Facility Fund. How do we advocate for adolescent reproductive health to be a crucial part of that conversation, such that when we finally secure that funding, we know that we have a bit that will take off adolescent reproductive health, and of course, menstrual hygiene, and all this access to safe water, and even free untaxable sanitary products. We need to start thinking of different ways of communicating our message, of putting our message across. For most organizations or most people, or even for the other gender, the male gender and other non-conforming individual, people that may not necessarily buy into menstrual health, the conversation around period poverty and stigma around periods may not sound so appealing at first front. You would have to now look at the person or the individual, the organization's mission and vision, and think through how you can situate the conversation around menstrual health to their interest, or to make them understand, to buy in, because we cannot do this alone. I mean, we've been doing this menstrual health advocacy for a while, but we are still here and we are nowhere. And I'm glad Abena mentioned that in her opening statement. It seems as the other part of the world is moving forward, and the conversations around menstrual health and young girls having access to free menstrual hygiene products, we can't even get girls to comfortably own their periods or be comfortable about talking about their periods. You would get a university graduate who would hear you talk about menstrual hygiene on your status or your Facebook and will inbox you and say, ew. And that is how serious the conversation. We are so far behind. How do we get all other stakeholders on board and make the menstrual hygiene conversation a pivotal and integral conversation in the conversation for development and gender equality for women and girls? Thank you. I don't know why you are muted.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, AC, for that very insightful speech. And it's very important, like you mentioned, if we are to make any progress, we have to look at integrating menstrual hygiene into both national and continental agendas. And if this doesn't happen, I mean, if everybody can't really talk about menstrual hygiene, if it's only limited to menstrual hygiene advocates and activists, how then can a girl know that she can at any time talk about her menses? If she has any problem related to her menses, she can approach her parents, she can approach her teachers, she can approach her peers, and then have them help her. So it's very important that we make this a general conversation, integrate it into all conversations. And I love that you brought about, you mentioned the aspect of financing. If we are not talking menstrual hygiene when we are developing national finance agendas, how then do we make sure that all our big ideas about curbing period poverty, stopping taxing of menstrual products and all of that are achieved? So yeah, thank you, AC, for that. And talking about finances, we know that we can have all these great ideas, we can have all these great plans and proposals and all of that, and we want to implement these activities, and if you don't have the money to, you cannot. So as advocates, as activists, we know how important having the money to implement your project is. And we have somebody from an institution that provides funding for women-led and women-focused organizations. And one of the things that the organization is focusing on this year is women's sexual and reproductive rights, which includes menstrual hygiene. So we are super excited to have her here to talk to us today. And she's Beatrice Boachi-Iyadom, and she's the grant manager of African Women's Development Fund. Thank you, Beatrice, for joining, and please go ahead.
Great, thank you. Technology is playing tricks. Good afternoon, my name is Beatrice Boachi-Iyadom, and I work with the African Women's Development Fund. This afternoon I have a simple task of looking at how, as donors, we are interested in partnership and collaborations, coalitions, movement buildings, amongst others. And so I want to start by saying that as funders, we are very interested in small size organizations, community organizations. I want to put that out first. We try as much as possible to ensure that our grant making, our funding is quite inclusive, and so we don't discriminate. We look at community organizations, we look at small organizations, we look at large organizations, and so we support all these organizations. We do acknowledge that these small organizations are very, very important. They know the context better. They are very much in touch with the field, and so we do really, really appreciate them. But we also do know that collaborations and partnerships come with some strengths. They come with some value. When you are in a partnership, you have a bigger voice, you have a bigger reach. You are able to learn from each other. You are able to have systems and mechanisms in place that allow you to reach out better. Essie just spoke about ensuring that we integrate menstrual health into all other sectors of our development work. And so how do you ensure that, for example, the economic justice movement is able to talk about menstrual health, or the women's rights movement is able to talk about menstrual health, or the maternal health movement is able to talk about menstrual health? If you are one small organization, it will be quite difficult for you to make this impact. However, if there are 2 of you, if there are 3 of you, if there are hundreds of you coming together to form a coalition, or to form a network, or to form a movement, it is easier for you to be able to make the necessary impact that you are seeking for, and to be able to reach out more further and deeper, as opposed to one organization. And so partnerships help build that collective force, that collective power that is able to bring individuals and organizations together to create that change, that systemic change that we are all looking for. We all know that when we are talking about issues such as menstrual health, it's systemic. The issues are systemic. How do we ensure that, for example, our policymakers ensure that they budget appropriately for menstrual health issues? In many countries, we are trying to ensure that our government provide, for example, free sanitary towels to our schoolgirls. How do you ensure that is done? As one organization, it will be very, very difficult for you to make that kind of impact. However, if you come together as partners, if you come together as a coalition or a network, you are able to make that kind of impact. You are able to make that kind of noise. There is power in numbers, and as advocates, we all know that noise does play a part in it. And if there are a lot of you, you are better able to do that. As coalitions, you are able to, like we say, make audacious asks, and the powers that be are more likely to hear from you. If you are a partner, and there are, let's say, you are in Ghana, and you have partners in various, let's say, districts. We hear about menstrual health in every district, and so we are able to make that kind of impact that we want to see, instead of being at one place by yourself and talking about menstrual health. And so as donors, we do very much like partnership. We do very much like coalitions and networks and movements, and we are able to support these kinds of arrangements. However, as donors, we also have ask a lot of questions when we are talking about coalitions and movements and partnerships. And so for me, one of the first things I'll be looking at is, do you have an aligned mission, for example? We know that partnership coalitions come with mission drifts, but it's important that if you want to form partnerships, if it's important that you want to form coalitions, you ensure that your missions and your goals do fit. Once your missions and your goals fit, you are better able to approach a donor to get some funding and to do your work. We all know that funding plays a great role in many of the advocacy work that we do. And so if you are thinking about forming partnerships, if you are thinking about forming coalitions, one of the first things you have to look at is whether your missions do fit. And then you need to ask yourself, what is the strength of each member? What am I bringing into the partnership? What is the other person bringing into the partnership? How do we build on each other's strengths, and how do we build on each other's values to ensure that we make that impact that we are looking at? And so for each member of the coalition or partnership, you need to have a clearly defined role and to be able to ensure that each member helps each other. Again, we know that when you are in partnership, you are able to help the other organization. And so if you are, for lack of a better word, the more capacitated organization, how do you ensure that you build the capacity of the other organization to ensure that they are able to strengthen themselves to play that critical role that you want them to play in the organization? One other issue that as coalitions or partners you have to look at is governance. How do you ensure that we all within the partnership play a role in decision making? It's very, very important that we are democratic in the partnership that we form, and it's very important that we value each member's contribution towards that partnership. And that can be done, if you ask me, through communication. How do you sit down and clarify issues? How do you ensure that each member of the coalition or partnership gets the necessary information that they need to ensure that they play their role very well? And so I would say that it's important that when you are forming a partnership and coalitions, you clarify all issues around that partnership. You ensure that there's deep understanding around what the partnership is about and how you intend to go about it. Make sure that your missions and combined value bring something to the table to ensure that you are able to do what you want to do. And so this afternoon, I just want to let you know that partnership and coalitions are very, very important. They are critical. And as donors, it's something that we encourage, and it's something that we usually are ready to support. Thank you very much. Over to you, Benoit.
Yes, thank you so much, Beatrice. Very, very important point made. So we all know that, but there are a lot of us doing the same things. We are working in silos and we are not achieving as much as we want to achieve. And even when we look at it from the financial point of view, like you've already clarified, coming together helps get funding, and once we get our priorities right and what our strengths and all of that are, we're able to access more funding. So thank you so much, Beatrice, for taking us through that. So that will be it for our first round for this summit. If you have any questions, like I mentioned, please do put them in the chat box. Our speakers are still with us till the summit ends. They would take any questions you may have. Please continue tweeting. I've seen some very amazing tweets. Please continue tweeting. Let your friends who are on Facebook know that they can watch us live on Facebook, and they can also contribute to the discussions on Facebook. So we are moving into our second part of the summit, and that is us talking to some very amazing young women who are doing amazing work on menstrual hygiene in their communities. Remember, the theme is strengthening collaborations to maximize impact. So today we are all about how we can form partnerships, how we can strengthen collaborations to ensure that we are not working in silos and achieving less than we can achieve if we work together. So I am going to start with, I hope my panelists are ready. let me mention their names again. Once again, those who just joined, a warm welcome to you. You are live on the first ever Menstrual Health Summit Africa. And like I mentioned, my panelists are Hasna Jaga from Morocco, Ines Chakunte Yemga from Cameroon, Eunice Japomatre from Ghana, and Caroline Oushaba from Uganda. So my first question to you, my panelists, is the situation of menstrual hygiene in your country. So remember, you're representing your continental bloc. So generally, if you are from West Africa, it's West Africa. If you're from East Africa, it's East Africa, and then Northern Africa, in that order. So I'm going to start with you, Ines. What's the situation of menstrual hygiene in your country? I should mention that Zoom automatically mutes speakers, and so it takes a few minutes for them to be able to unmute. So kindly bear with us as they get to it. Ines, are you ready? Okay, Ines is still getting to, oh, hello Ines. No, we cannot hear you. Hello, Ines. Okay, I see Nanekwe is also on. As we wait for Ines, Nanekwe, you can take your turn. What's the situation of menstrual hygiene in Ghana?
Okay, I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, you are very clear.
All right, so I think a lot of things has been said, and the situation with menstrual hygiene isn't different here in Ghana, where we still have a lot of girls who do not have anything to manage with when they are menstruating. They do not know why they are menstruating. They do not know the concept, the biological concepts behind menstruation. They are going through ridicule from their friends, especially boys in their classrooms. Their parents do not understand it, and then they cannot educate. And then most importantly, what we've also realized is when we talk about sustainability, a way to keep the situation, most people, let's say rural communities where we work, they are not ready to embrace the different way we have to keep the situation that we have. An example I'll give right here is when we adopted menstrual cup as a way to keep the situation when it comes to period poverty. Now you go to communities where you do all you are supposed to do, sensitization, all that, you distribute the cups, give education, everybody understands, but then you go and come back and then the girl actually want to use it, but then the mother is preventing her from using it because she's having all sort of different ideas, even though when you try to talk to them to understand why we are using this way to keep the situation, they do not understand. So these are some of the things. And then another situation right here, I think AC spoke about policymakers and all that. It is one also difficult area to get policymakers to really understand the situation on the ground. I will make an example of, I went to a pitching competition where I'd wanted them to understand the this whole period poverty thing, and then a way we can deal with it with washable pads. I tell you, they threw all things into my face from the panelists that it is not important and that girls do not miss school anywhere, according to them, and that women will rather use, mothers of the girls will rather use their monies to buy clothes and other things for themselves instead of buying sanitary pads. So they do not believe in that. So, you know, that aspect is also there. So when it comes to menstrual hygiene, period poverty, and all that, we are still slacking behind. We are still behind, but then we are trying as much as possible to get everything on board so we can actually deal with this situation once and for all. This is what I have to say.
All right. Thank you so much, Nanekwe. Ines, if you are able to speak now. Hello, Ines. If Ines still isn't ready, Caroline or Hasna, please try unmuting. Hello, Hasna. Ines? Okay, we would urge our participants to kindly bear with us. Have a bit of technical challenge. Yay, hi, finally.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So I would start until Ines join us. Okay.
Sure. So do tell us the situation of menstrual in Morocco.
Okay. As mentioned before by our friend Mandy, she said that a lot of lack of resources in Africa regarding the hygiene kits or sanitary pads is a difficult issue in the whole countries in Africa. But the thing is that in my region, in my country, Morocco, it's different. We all believe that menstruation is an important part of every girl's life. But the thing is that especially in rural area, many girls lack adequate knowledge about the origin of menstrual blood and about the physiological cause of menstruation. So it's more the inadequate knowledge than the lack of resources. So basically, I can say that this lack of knowledge and access to the right information regarding menstruation is what creates misconception, negative reaction, and bad hygiene habits that can impact their reproductive health on the long term.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Asna. Ines, are you on now? Oh, her microphone is muted again.
Okay, can you get me now?
Oh yeah, finally.
Okay, finally. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, first of all, to be a panelist of the African Summit Menstrual Hygiene, African Summit, pardon me. I am Ines Chakunte, General Secretary at YALDA Cameroon. What I would say is that the menstrual hygiene situation in Cameroon is it's not that good and it's not that bad. A lot of work is being done on the field. We have some changes, but still the rural communities are in a deep mess. And we still consider menstruation as a taboo in the rural communities. You find girls who can't go to school because they don't have the means to maybe change their sanitary pads in the schools because there are no toilets. And even if there are toilets, they are not private. If a girl is inside the toilet, a boy can easily pass, and that is a risk of violence and insecurity. So they prefer not to go to school. And now we have a crisis in Cameroon, the Anglophone crisis. We find a lot of women who have run into the bushes to go and hide. What is the case of those women? How do they handle their menstrual hygiene in the bushes? We have stories of some women who use leaves from trees as sanitary pad for their menstruation, which is actually very dangerous. If you visit the refugee camps in the northern region of Cameroon, you will find out that the menstrual hygiene situation there is very deplorable. The women don't have access to water in order to clean themselves. They don't even have access to sanitary pads. But thank God for some NGOs and some other philanthropists who take the initiative to go around and distribute sanitary pads, but which is not still sustainable because it's not just about distributing sanitary pads. It's about doing something that is going to bring a change in the lives of those young girls. A lot of girls in Cameroon now in the rural areas have dropped out of school, not because they want, but because they are just tired of the shame. They're just tired of the shame. When you are in class, for example, you want to sit near a guy and they'll be like, oh no, don't sit near me, you're smelling, oh, you're nasty, you're menstruating, and all of that. It's traumatizing for a young girl. So you see a lot of girls now they drop out, not because school is difficult, not because they want, but because of the menstrual hygiene situation. Sensitization has to be done on the field. And culturally, the societal norms also have to be broken. because they still consider it's a taboo. You go to some families, they tell you that if you're the lady and you're menstruating, you are not supposed to touch the dishes, you're not supposed to cook the food, you're not even supposed to share a room with anybody because you are considered nasty and impure. And this is something which is really frustrating and has to change. This is the case of Cameroon. Cameroon sometimes is considered in Central Africa and sometimes in West Africa. So I'm just talking from both sides now.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Ines. And it's interesting how we have the same problems running through all of our continent, all of our various regional blocks. And so it looks like cost of menstrual hygiene products, mystifying menstruation, not knowing where menstruation comes from, how is it that girls menstruate, the shame that's associated with menstruation, the ridicule, and all of that. So basically, we are all fighting the same devil. And that clearly shows how important it is for us to collaborate to maximize impact. So my next question to us is, we've identified the problems, we know the problems. What are some of the interventions you individually and your organizations are putting in place to help curb the situation? Any of you can start. Ines, since you are so on, you can start.
Okay. So the organization I work for, YALDA Cameroon, firstly, YALDA is an international NGO which is based in African countries, of which we have Cameroon, and I am the Secretary General. But before being the Secretary General of Cameroon, we had the YALDA University branch in the university in which I was, the Pan-African Institute for Development West Africa, which is termed YALDA PEDWA because YALDA has branches in universities. And while in YALDA PEDWA, I was the executive director for YALDA PEDWA. That was in 2018. And what we used to do every year in commemoration of the World Menstrual Day, we will select a community, a rural community, because in town there is a lot of work being done in the city. So we will select a rural community. We move to that community and we do sensitization campaigns. And one important thing we used to do is that we include the men in everything we did, because we noticed that most of the men are still ignorant of many issues surrounding menstrual hygiene. And they fail to realize that they are very important actors in menstrual hygiene. It's not something that concerns just the ladies, because they have sisters and they will have wives someday. And so we do sensitization campaigns in the rural communities. We also distributed sanitary pads, but we realized that sanitary pad distribution is not sustainable, like I said earlier, because when the sanitary pads we distributed are over, what do? If they don't have money to go and buy sanitary pads, and in Cameroon today, the cheapest sanitary pad is 600 francs, but not everybody in the rural community has 600 francs to buy a sanitary pad. So what we did is that we trained them on manufacturing reusable sanitary pads. We have done, I think, a couple of 3 trainings in 3 different rural communities. We trained them how to do reusable sanitary pads, as well as laying emphasis on menstrual hygiene, because, if you tell them, okay, you can produce your own sanitary pad yourself, and you don't tell them that you have to wash that sanitary pad 3 times, you have to change it maybe 4 times daily, they won't know. You will find girls who will use it 1 time every day. So we lay emphasis on menstrual hygiene, safe menstrual hygiene. And also we shouldn't forget that there is an issue of, there is something we call menstrual cramps. I am a victim of menstrual cramps, and there are a lot of girls out there in the rural communities who are having difficulties dealing with these menstrual cramps. And it's something that, for me, from my own point of view, many people have left it out, but it's very, very important when we are talking about safe menstrual hygiene. And you find girls, for example, who can't go to school when they're on their period because they are experiencing pains in their belly. Others go up to the point of vomiting, catching fever. It all depends on everybody's system. Myself, for example, when I have my period, I experience serious cramps, and it goes to the point of me developing a fever and vomiting if I don't take any painkillers. So what we do during the sensitization campaigns is that we tell them how to go about it. You can put warm water in a bottle or in a towel, and then you put it on your stomach and wait for approximately 5 to 10 minutes, and then it's going to calm down. So I just saw a question in the chat. So about the reusable sanitary pads, we used to tell them that, okay, you can manufacture the bag where you keep the pad. The pad is made up of some sort of a wool material that you can buy in the market. So that wool material is what she actually menstruates on. And after maybe 2 hours, depending on each girl's flow amount, she removes it and she washes it with water and soap, and she dries it. And after drying it, she irons it and keeps it in the bag. And then she can use the next cotton wool material to menstruate on it. So that's just, I just saw a question in the chat. And we have had a lot of sensitization campaigns also, most in the rural villages. And many girls too, they don't know how to even use the sanitary pads. So we train them on all of this, how to use it, how to keep clean, bathe 2 or 3 times in a day, depending on your availability of water in your community and also on your amount of flow. Because we also should know that everybody doesn't have the same flow. People flow heavily, people flow medium, and people flow small. But most importantly, you should bathe twice a day. And I will focus on the guys, on the men who are on the forum. Guys, it's not bad. You shouldn't be shy to talk about menstruation. You shouldn't be shy to talk about it with your girlfriend. You shouldn't be shy to talk about it with your sister. Because I have some friends, when you just mention the name sanitary pad, oh, they evaporate. They get so angry. Like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And it's disappointing because we are in 2020. Things have to change. It's not just about the women. If we're talking about gender equality, the men also have to join the fight of menstrual hygiene. It's not just about women. And I made sure that I invited most guys because it's actually very important for them to know. So let me not talk for so long. I have so many things to say, but that means there are other panelists who have to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines. Caroline, are you with us now?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, welcome back, Caroline.
Yes, I'm sorry, I lost power, so I had to be off.
No, that's fine. So participant Caroline is from Uganda and she's the team leader for Action for Youth Development Uganda. So Caroline, very quickly tell us what the situation of menstrual hygiene is in Cameroon, and then also tell us the interventions your organization is putting in place to curb that.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening for those from East Africa. I'm Caroline, and I work as a team leader for Action for Youth Development Uganda. And as well, I coordinate Girls Not Bride, Western region, Uganda. The situation about menstruation in Uganda is very alarming. Statistically, it shows that 28% of adults and girls do not actually attend school during the period days. And the statistics that were also done, the research that was also carried out by UNICEF shows that 98% actually have pediatricians. However, if not all 100%, but like 75% do not have disposal items, meaning that even when a girl is menstruating, she has nowhere to throw away the sanitary pad, which becomes a challenge. Like in any other country in Africa, Ugandan girls continue to miss school because of the menstruation-related problems. Maybe I could highlight one of those challenges that lead to this. One of them is about, which is actually the major problem, is the ineffective menstrual hygiene management, which includes lack of access to clean water and effective absorbents, and then also inadequate facilities to change. You can tell that most schools, like especially in the rural setting, the schools are there, even the structures of Peter twins will be there, but then they have no doors. So it feels so like it is actually, a girl feels shy to go in to change because she doesn't want maybe boys and other girls to look at her blood. And then also, most of these lack clean and disposable absorbents, and lack of access to soap and water in schools. Even the research has it, and it's on record that most of the schools do not provide these services. And then lack of privacy is a common issue. And as well, inadequate social support and presence of taboos lead to psychosocial problem, especially for people who are not sensitized, because this is something that is actually, we are breaking the stigma, but as well, we still have the myths and misconceptions that are associated with menstruation. That's why we are saying break the stigma. It's normal to menstruate, because we believe if our mothers didn't menstruate, then that means we do not exist. And one of the things that we are trying to do as Action for Youth Development Uganda, and in partnership with Girls Not Bride Alliance Uganda, which is affiliated to the Global Alliance, Girls Not Bride, we are a coalition of 87 organizations that are working towards menstruation, and we are teamed in different clusters, that is education, health, and youth. And what we do is that we are all basically looking at different sectors. Some are looking at the service provision, others are looking at advocacy, and others are actually lobbying the government and engaging the policymakers on issues related to menstruation and hygiene. And as well, we have a team that is actually looking at the budget advocacy. How do we influence the government to at least allocate a specific budgets towards menstruation, sanitation and hygiene, and associated activities. Uganda in 2018 launched a sexuality framework, which is more detailed, like as far as from someone who is 4 years. But again, it has not been, the implementation has become so hard because of some of the things that the ministry do not agree in the framework. And then when we talk about partnership, I would want to agree with the presenter from African Women Development, African Women Development Fund, yes. When it comes to issues of collaboration and partnerships, you need to come up with clarification. Because when you look at how the government is very, very, very supportive in supporting menstruation, hygiene, and as well, they appreciate that this is the most challenge that is affecting girls, and that's why we have more girls dropping out of school because of the associated issues. However, we do not see how they are planning to allocate funds to work on the menstruation issues. We, from the Girls Not Bride Alliance, we have advocated for it and we continue to advocate for it. But then this is taking more time, and we continue to pressurize them to allocate funds. During the ICPD 25 that happened in Nairobi last year, our president committed very well as one of the consortiums in the East African integration that they would provide free sanitary pads, but this has not come to pass because there is no budget for it. And yet the policymakers have not said anything much. And then when it comes to our part as Action for Youth Development Uganda, because we work with the rural school-going adolescent girls, and as well we work with adolescent girls in refugee settlement communities and the host communities. And if you read statistically, Uganda is hosting more than 1.4 million refugees from different countries in Africa, and majority of these, 70% to say, are young people. But these young people are not accessing adequate menstrual sanitation and hygiene services. But through partnership with Girls Not Bride members, we have been able to reach different girls. And what we do in these communities, we don't only focus on schools who are in school, we as well focus on different categories. We have members who are focusing on girls in school, then we have members who are focusing on girls outside school, then we have the ones focusing on the girls who are living with empowerment, I mean like disabled, because these are some of the girls that have the greatest disadvantage because most of the facilities do not favor them. How do we reach out to them? So those are some of the things. We train them in using reusable sanitary pads, and I can assure you we have had many CSOs and private sector support us to achieve this with the AfriPads, UniPads, and Eco pads. They have been very, very supportive on this. I cannot say that our government has not been supportive. Ministry of Education has also supported in ensuring that we reach to these girls. Another component that has really worked for us is that reaching out to parents, because we realize that parents send the adults and girls to school thinking that teachers are actually going to provide adequate information to the girls, but it's very unfortunate that some teachers are also not empowered, so they do not provide the information. They go back to the adults and girls go back home without information. So what we do is that the integration of information. How do we reach out to parents and as well reach out teachers? And that's when we have really done it. And also engaging the local government, because we work with the district health officers, and these same health officers, they help us to train other district stakeholders, especially from the district education inspectorate department, so that we are able to reach more numbers. Though this comes with a challenge, especially for the docent girls living around the fishing communities, and as well in the refugee settlements, because you cannot reach all the numbers at the same time. That's why we call upon other partners to come on board. Then when it comes to the national level, we are engaging the policymakers in ensuring that the menstruation policies that have been put in place are implemented, so that more money is allocated to them, because we have realized that even during COVID-19, it has even become more challenging. The girls are facing this problem because periods don't stop during the pandemic. In fact, they become worse when during the pandemic. And as we continue we continue this conversation in this year, we need to look at other things that can be done.
Okay, Caroline, we'll come to that in a bit. So for now, let's hold on to. We'll come to future interventions in a bit. So for now, let's hold on to that. Thank you so much.
And then their fathers.
Yeah, I was saying that we'll come to future interventions in a bit. So for now, let's hold on to that. Thank you so much. It's very interesting, and it's great that most of the interventions your organization is doing, it's very multifaceted. You are looking at women and girls from different demographics. You are looking at very different approaches, and that's amazing. I think that's something other organizations and individuals can learn. Daniel Kuya Chair, I don't know if you're up. Can you tell us what interventions your organization or your foundation is putting in place to address menstrual hygiene problems in Ghana, especially period poverty, because I know that's your specialty? So, Eunice Japoma, If she's all ready, Hasna, are you ready? You could share with us what your organization is doing in Morocco to address menstrual hygiene problems. Hasna or Nanekia, either of you can go ahead. I think the microphone is still giving them problems. Please do bear with us. It's difficult. I mean, it's becoming difficult technically for them to activate their microphones again. Whilst we wait for them, please continue tweeting using the hashtag Menstrual Hygiene Day Africa or Sisters Diaries, and please do tag Sisters Diary Official or myself, Benewa Fosu, on Twitter. The video is being shared live on Facebook, so your friends can also watch from Facebook. Yeah. Eunice, are you ready? Okay, she still seems to be having challenges. Whilst we wait, we have Francisca with us, and she would also like to share what her organization is doing to address menstrual hygiene problems in schools. But in the meantime, somebody has a question. I don't know which of the panelists or speakers can answer that. Delight is asking, is it possible to have degradable pads to help with disposal? That's supposed to address environmental issues with regards to disposing of sanitary products. So the speakers and the panelists, does anybody have an answer to that? Okay, if nobody has an answer, Francisca would like to tell us how Community Water and Sanitation Agency is providing water to curb menstrual poverty in schools. So, Francisca, if you are ready, you have the floor. Again, please do bear with us. We are having a bit of technical challenges with muting and unmuting of microphones. So please do bear with us. Francisca? Oh dear. So yeah, again, sorry, we are trying to fix the microphone problem. So please do bear with us for a minute or two.
Okay, I think I've been on mute. You know what?
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Ejapomach, right, and I'm at the Tre Foundation, and one of our main aim is to curb period poverty in Ghana. So some of the things we've done so far within those years is, one thing we've done is sustainability, looking at how we can actually curb this situation in a very smart way and then a good way. So when we started with disposables, and then we realized they were not sustainable because you go back and find out that those you give the disposable pads to, they are done using it and then they do not have again. So they go back to their old ways of um, managing it, which is very wrong. So we had to look for an alternative. So we found out about menstrual cups and the washable pads. Right now, we've been able to produce very few of the washable pads because we do not have a lot of funds, and we do not have a lot of organizations supporting us. Currently, we're leaning on the benevolence of the public to implement most of our projects. So we've not been able to do much. But then with the menstrual cup, we've done a lot about it, and then we've been able to distribute a lot. And we did this in collaboration with Maristop Ghana and then some other organizations outside the country. And then from the data we took when we went to those communities, we deal with deprived communities, rural communities, and also urban slums. Can you? I'm getting this.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everybody. It's just Mandy. And, I'm going to be leaving.
Can you all hear me? Can I go on?
Yeah, you can continue.
All right. Thank you, Viniva. So yes, with regards to the menstrual cup, what we do is we collect data when we go into the community to really find out what the problem is. So from the data, you realize that this whole pure poverty thing isn't just the fact that they do not have access to sanitary products, but then they do not also have access to soap, water, and then washrooms in their schools. So you realize that when you give them the products, they will be compelled, especially the girls in the schools, they will be compelled to go back home to go and change. That means they wouldn't return back to school. So another issue hasn't been solved. So what we've done so far in that aspect of making sure we have water and soap and washrooms is that we've been able to collaborate with one organization that is in regards to water and sanitation to be able to put up a washroom for a girl in one community, the Adan is district right here in Ghana, so that the girls do not be compelled to go back to school, even though they have access to the pad. One thing we've also done is to bring teachers on board to be able to understand the concept and then the biological concepts of menstruation, so that whilst we are not there in the schools as advocates, they will be able and then they will continue to talk to the girls about it. Another thing we've also done is to make sure we get advocates within the communities. So we get people, both men and women. We train them on menstrual hygiene, period poverty, every single information they need to know about menstruation. We give them so that whilst we are away from the community within a month or two, they will be able to take over from us so that beneficiaries of the project wouldn't be left hanging since we are not around. Another thing we've also done is to make sure that we link with clubs, girls clubs, boys clubs, all the clubs in the school. Like we collaborate with them, be with them, and then we'll be able to introduce all these things to them. Some of the clubs, the school clubs, they meet every Friday after school. So yes, there is a session for menstrual hygiene where we train some of the girls to be able to educate their peers on respect to that issue. Another thing we've also done is that we've also made sure that we involve both male and then female when it comes to the advocates joining us and the volunteers joining us, so that everybody will feel free and go to the rural communities, and then you realize that men and boys are talking about menstruation, they are part of us, and then they are talking about menstruation. They get that notion that there is nothing wrong with men in their community also accepting the fact that menstruation is a biological process, and that shaming a girl or a woman for something she has no control over it is inhuman, and then it's also against her dignity and pride as a woman. So far, this is what we've done, making sure we take data to be able to be on track and know exactly how we take the issue, and then collaborating with more organizations who are also looking at the same thing we are also looking at, and then they also have interest in what we are doing, and also getting advocates within community, within the schools. We train them and all that, and then involving all genders, and also making sure that we do not deal with just one part of period poverty, which is lack of accessing sanitary products, but also they having access to all the toiletries, the bathrooms, the washrooms, the soap, the water, and everything in their schools, in their homes, in their communities, so that they do not have any issues concerning period. So this is some of the things we've done, and also as trying to produce washable pads, but then we've done a little bit upgrade of ours, that is we trying to bring in antimicrobials, because most of us are into science and health and all that, so that we can also deal with that part of technology, so that the girls do not end up with pad rash and all issues concerning menstruation. So far, Benewa, this is what the Chair Foundation has been able to do in our country, Ghana. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Eunice. Before we continue, Mandy has to leave us, and so she would very quickly wrap up and then leave us. So, Mandy, you're on.
Thank you for allowing me to just finish off. One of the things that we haven't talked about here is actually women with disabilities, women with physical and intellectual impairments, and actually are even further disadvantaged. And it's really important that we actually address that issue as well. We have got Susan here from Rose Academies. It would be great to give her a platform to maybe say a few words, because she does a lot of work with women with disabilities, especially women with hearing impairments, and has done some great work in Uganda as well. I hope that you're going to use this opportunity to actually network, because there is so many different organizations and activists and campaigners from around the globe here today, so it's fantastic. And it will be about looking at how do you collaborate, how do you look at putting in funding bids together into other platforms and things around tackling gender equality. It's really important that we look at leaving no one behind. So it would be good if someone does have a conversation around people with disabilities. And if anyone does have a quick question, I'm happy to answer it. But well done on the summit. It's been great to see so many people. It's been fantastic to see so many young men be involved in this conversation as well, because actually they have to be a part of the solution and not always seen as a part of the problem. So thank you again. It's been a great honor, and well done, Diana, and everyone else who's been in. Thank you to our moderator, who's done a great job so far, even though we've had some tech issues with some sounds, but actually overall it's been not too bad at all. So keep safe, and hope the social isolation and the quarantine is okay in your own country and not too difficult for you. But thank you again, and well done everyone for pulling this together.
All right, thank you so much. Those of us who didn't begin with us, Mandy is an international human rights activist, and she shared very interesting perspectives with us when she gave her speech. Thank you so much, Mandy, for joining, for being available to us. And we'll call on you again when you're needed. And please do follow her on Twitter to follow up what she's been up to. Thank you, Mandy. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we continue from there. Hasna, I think you haven't spoken on the interventions your organization is putting in place, so you can do that now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to thank Ines and Caroline for their intervention, and because they touched the practical and the field, and also the policy making, and also the decision maker. So for me, I represent the network YPeer, which is a big network, an international network beyond by UNFPA, and that work on promoting sexual and reproductive health all over the globe. So in this regard, we work on initially giving young and adolescents the right info regarding their sexual and reproductive health. So it also include menstrual hygiene. So our approach is peer-to-peer education. So we use this approach while giving training and awareness session. So for a year, for example, we organize for like 100 session, awareness session in schools, in high schools, and in summer camps. So these sessions are tackling initially menstrual hygiene, sexual and reproductive health in globally. But as my friend Ines said, it also includes some training regarding how to use sanitary pads, what is menstrual blood. I mean, global knowledge about this period of a girl's life. So in addition to that, we also run each month digital campaigns using social media. So it will help us promote this issue and talk about it. I mean, we should talk about it and help people and contribute in elevating their knowledge, but also eliminating this taboo, because in our countries like North African countries and the Middle East, we also suffer from this issue. I mean, like it's also considered as a taboo. So we work on elevating their knowledge and talking using social media networks.
Okay, thank you so much, Hasna. I think you've all answered the question on what your various organizations are doing to address the problem. Like I mentioned, Franca is on the call and she would like to talk to us about something her organization is doing. So Franca, very briefly, do tell us the interventions your organization is putting in place to ensure that young girls have access to potable water when they are menstruating. And after that, Susan will also quickly tell us what she is doing to help women with disabilities navigate their menstrual period, menstrual hygiene, and all of that. So Franca, if you're ready. If not, if Susan is ready, Susan, you can go ahead.
Well, good evening, I guess, or good morning.
Okay.
It's good morning here in America. I'm in California. And thank you so very, very much for giving me an opportunity to say hello to all these fabulous women and men that are on the webinar this morning. And I'm the CEO of Rose Academies, and we work in, we've been working in Cameroon, Uganda, DRC, and Congo for the last 6 years. And half of our mission is focused on the deaf and disabled. And as far as menstrual health, well, we actually teach not only about menstruation, because as has been explained throughout this morning, that the girls are raised without any knowledge about menstruation. So that's the first thing that we bring into the conversation, is what is happening and about the reproductive process. We include the boys. We have given multiple workshops with at schools for the deaf, where we teach how to make the reusable pads. And there was a question I noticed in the chat box about the fact, is it sanitary? By all means, it is much more sanitary than using rubbish, garbage. I was appalled the first time when my colleague in Cameroon told me that I I asked, what do you use? And she pointed to some garbage. And I really, it drove my passion. So today, this is our focus, is to educate the rural woman that it's more than just menstruation. As Mandy pointed out, she had health issues. I think someone else, maybe it was Ines, that said that, you know, menstruation is it's how, it's our health. It's and it leads to other critically important diseases. So teaching about reproductive health, and we do that, and it's, like I say, it is a real honor. I am actually hosting a webinar this on May 27th, which is Wednesday, at 9 a.m. California time, or it's 7 p.m. Uganda time, and it is about the impact of COVID-19 on the disabled, and how do we improve access to healthcare. And so if you're interested, you can register on Eventbrite. It's I'll post the link. And we have some phenomenal speakers, including Mandy. And so I hope that you will join us. And thank you for letting me share.
All right, thank you so much, Susan, for that. I think it's very important that when we are talking about menstruation, nobody is left behind, including women and girls living with disabilities. Franca, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is from Community Water and Sanitation Agency, and I have a colleague of mine as well from CWSA Water is also with us today. For Community Water and Sanitation Agency, we are a government agency responsible for sanitation-related ensure that menstrual poverty is eradicated, is to ensure that no second cycle institution or any public institution is disconnected when they owe water bills. So even if a school owes water bill, so we need to ensure that their water is never disconnected. So that is one of the things that CWSA is doing to also help. Another thing we are doing last year we got influence about 6 districts benefiting from this. So we're able to construct toilet facilities for boys and girls in basic schools, so able to have their privacy when menstruating. Another thing too, we had World Bank funding Dignilu. Dignilu is a toilet facility project for rural communities. So when we go into these rural areas, we find that women suffer a lot when they are menstruating because they don't have place that they can easily attend to nature's call, and also clean themselves. So we have this, and then one of the things CWSA does is sanitation and hygiene as well. Yeah, and also another thing too is that we keep talking about schools. Most of the time, pregnant women, nursing mothers go to cheap compounds in the various local communities. And one of the things we realized was that even at the cheap compounds, they don't have place of convenience. They don't have places that women can easily clean themselves when they are in that time of the month. So CWSA also got a World Bank funding project to also construct toilet facilities, the compounds. So like I said, I speak for St. so I am aware and we're able to some of these zones to know those areas. So yes, and so these are ways that we can also ensure, because if you are menstruating, you definitely need water. You need good water, clean water to also clean yourselves. And these are some of the things that CWSA is doing, yeah, in Ghana currently. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Franca, and thank you so much, everyone who has joined and has stayed with us from the beginning. You can still tweet at Sisters Diary Off on Twitter. Use the hashtags MHD Africa and Sisters Diary. You can also tag me in your tweets. My Twitter handle is at Benewa Fosu. Okay, so we are going to go through the last round of questions and then we are going to be done. Thank you so much for staying with us all this while. So my next question is for our panelists. How have you used collaborations and partnerships in your work? You've already told us the things you are doing. What collaborations and partnerships have you formed? How did it maximize impact for you? And what are the lessons you learned? What's your giveaway from that? Eunice, Trey, I see you are on, so you could start. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Noah. So yes, collaboration is very, very important. Partnership is very, very important. You are able to come together as one big voice to be able to tell and then you'll be able to maximize your impact. So with regards to collaboration, we've collaborated with Maristop Ghana, Maristop International Ghana, where we are distributing menstrual cups to some girls in the Volta region, some part of the Volta region. We started this project last year, and then because of the COVID-19, we've paused. It will actually take 6 to 8 months to actually come up with an impact result. But then we've already done this menstrual cup project with other organizations that we already have the impact result, which was very great. We got a lot of the girls taken to this new way of managing their period, since we are also all about sustainability, and just not the fact that we are just giving them let's say a disposable pad for them to manage it for the time being, but then a way to keep the situation in a very long term. So yes, that is one of the things we've done with Maristop International. We've been able to collaborate with one organization on water and sanitation, where we've been able to build a toilet facility for one school in the Adam West District, where the girls wouldn't be compelled to go back home when they are menstruating, even for the fact that we've given them what they need to be able to stay in school. But then yes, they would need water, soap, and then a place to do all the changing when they come to school. So when it comes to collaboration and partnership, it's very important you are able to come together and then voice out. And then one thing we've been able to do when it comes to collaboration again is we asking the government to scrap off taxes on sanitary pad. We've come together with other organizations who are also looking in that direction, and then we are telling government to scrap off taxes on sanitary pads. So looking at it with all our voices, we believe the government will hear us. So partnership is very, very, very important, and then this is what we've been able to do throughout all these years that we've been around.
Okay, thank you, Eunice. Hasna, if you're on. If Hasna is not ready, Ines or Caroline can speak. Okay, Hasna is on.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So regarding the collaboration thing, actually our organization, YPA, did never work alone. We also work from our first project. We worked with many local NGOs, and also we have the support of UNFPA, who is always supporting us. Recently, we launched a big national campaign with the whole COVID-19 thing. So basically, we distribute hygiene kits for women in prison, for women with disabilities, for all the the specific targets that we worked with, and the whole campaign did well, and we had we succeed on touching and impacting and distributing a lot of hygiene kits to all the kingdom. I mean, we distribute like many kits. I don't have the exact number, but I can assure you that this campaign had also had encouraged many local NGOs to work on this kinds of projects, because every local NGO here in Morocco focused only on promoting their campaign through social media. They didn't do anything on file. So we were the only organization, with the support, of course, of the UNFPA. So we had a big campaign, and the good thing is that it encouraged a lot of local NGO into doing the same. So the thing is that collaboration is very important in doing things with less time, and also it also encourages other people to do other work, but also it gives and it touch more people, and it gives higher impact on the community. So that's it.
All right, thank you so very much, Hasna. Those are very interesting observations. Ines or Caroline, if you're on, yeah, any of you could go ahead.
Yes. So, Yada Cameroon specifically has, we are presently ongoing with a campaign which we have termed It Starts With You campaign. And it tries to focus on various departments. We have menstrual hygiene, we have volunteerism, and we have the democracy and elections, everything that concerns politics. So we launched the campaign in 2018, and we have had the opportunity to partnership with other organizations like Vision in Action Cameroon. There is a movement, we call it the movement Love Me First, which started in Nigeria and expanded in other countries and came to Cameroon as well. We have also had a partnership with another organization termed NDDT Cameroon, Movement for Democracy and Transparency. And so those are one of the most important NGOs which we have had to partnership with for the campaign we term It Starts With You. And we are moving not just in one region of the country, but with those other NGOs, we are expanding into other regions of the country. We have left from the Southwest region, we have entered the Littoral region, the Central region, and the Northwest region, where we try to reach the vulnerable and women and girls in the rural communities to broaden our scope of intervention. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much, Ines. Caroline, if you're on. Yeah, she keeps having technical challenges, so it seems she's off again. So basically, to wrap up on this session, I would like our panelists to tell us, as people working on the ground to provide interventions for menstrual hygiene challenges, what be your takeaway from this summit, taking into consideration what your colleagues have said, what the speakers said, and things people have said in the comment section? What's your takeaway from the summit? Ines, we can start with you. Oh. Ines, okay, you're on now.
Okay. So personally, I have learned a lot from the speakers and from the other panelists. There is so much I have learned in addition to what I knew already. I have been working on menstrual hygiene for about 5 years now, since 2015. But I have learned many other things. Like Susan said, we also have to reach the, I'm sorry, Megan, she talked about the deaf and handicaps. Excuse me, my French is a little bit jamboxing with the English. So that is something.
People living with disability.
Oh, good, thank you. People living with disabilities, and we have to include them also in the project, because I just realized that we haven't included them in our own projects, and that's something we have to talk about. I will talk with my boss and my partners. We are going to include them in the projects. Thank you very much for everybody's contribution. But there is also something that I would like to mention. We are talking about including men in the menstrual hygiene discourse, but I think we should give the opportunity to a guy who is on the session to tell us a bit about their own view of menstrual hygiene, how to go about it, the kind of things. And then maybe if we're having a next session or a next summit, we can include them on the panelists or as a speaker, because all what we are saying is from the point of view of the women, but we also need to hear a guy. So I think you should select a man from the session who is in to tell us about something also before we wrap up this, because it's very important.
Okay, thank you, Ines, for the suggestion. Would consider that. Yeah, and it's a very great lesson you've learned. I also didn't really think about women with disabilities whilst all this discussion was ongoing. And so thank you so much, Susan, for putting us on track. Eunice, what's been your lessons from this summit? What are you taking home?
Okay, so it has really been a great opportunity to meet everybody, to interact, learn new things. I think the lady who just spoke has said everything on my mind, especially we've left people with disability out of our advocacy, and then, which is very bad, we need to bring every single woman, girl on board, regardless of where they are, their geographical area, what they do, where they live. We need to look at every single corner. We cannot just make impact in just one section. We need our impact should be able to cut across everywhere, so that we'll be able to achieve the eradication of period poverty globally. So this is one thing I've also learned, and also learned for the fact that we need collaboration, we need movement, we need partnership, we need everything. We need everybody to actually come on board, so that the world will be able to hear our voices, policymakers will be able to hear our voices, the ministries, government will be able to hear our voices when we speak out, because together as one we can, and then when we stand alone we can, but then when we come together as one big voice, the world will be able to hear us, and then we'll be able to eradicate period poverty once and for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eunice. Hasna, what's been your takeaway from today's summit? What new lessons learned? Any new things you plan doing after the summit?
Oh, I want to thank each one of you for inviting us today and for the insightful presentation and insightful intervention. Actually, as everyone said, we neglected the disability people, but the thing is that we don't give them much importance, but we will focus on it furthermore. But also the part of public policy. I should each sexual and reproductive health advocate should dedicate some of their time into making and approaching public policy and public policy maker and decision, so they can voice their suggestion and help giving more voices to the people who don't have this opportunity. I mean, we have a big opportunity to speak for others, for the people with disabilities, for the people who lack resources to get their because it tackles our health, so it's a right. So we need to speak up, and we need to voice our rights. And this is why I think it's very, very important to dedicate some of our time into the public policy thing. So that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Susan. We are just about wrapping up, so if you have any questions or comments, please do put them in the chat box. So we'll take a final word from the host of this summit, Nana Machumesi, who is Executive Director of Sisters Diaries. She hosted this. This is her project or initiative. And so by way of wrapping up, we'll take a short conclusion or concluding word from Nana Machumesi, and then we can all be on our jolly way. So Nanama.
Okay, thank you very much, Habna. And thank you to all our panelists and speakers. It's been an awesome summit. Thank you very much for participating. Before I wrap up, I've seen that Belinda from GEM wants to make a few comments, so I'll just allow Belinda to go ahead and make her submission before I wrap up.
All right. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, my internet has not figured me. Yes, on the issue of the tax on sanitary pads, I think we can collectively make an impact if we can all collect signatures. James started with that. We put a page out, we're collecting signatures, and so if all groups, all women groups, NGOs who are into the girl child and who believe in the fact that sanitary pads should not be expensive and to be able to help us scrape this period poverty, we can all as a group come together and collectively collect signatures and present to Parliament, and I think that can really help us out. It will get them to actually talk about it and then go along with for them to even pass a bill scraping that tax. And then we have also spoken much about menstruation and all that. I think we should also be looking into disposing of the used menstrual materials, because most of the girls we encounter on our outreaches, we realize most are not interested in using the pads because of misconceptions about other people picking up their used menstrual pads with blood in them, using them for rituals. And so I believe that we can also include that in our discussions and then find appropriate ways, get to make them understand useful ways of disposing of the used sanitary materials so that they can comfortably use the pads, knowing that they are safe and nobody will have access to their used blood. Thanks so much. I've been very well enlightened by the little I had opportunity to listen into.
Thank you very much, Belinda. And then we do acknowledge the work of GEM, that's the Girls Excellence Movement in Ghana. We've been doing an amazing job and we do acknowledge that. So before I wrap up, there was a gentleman who also wanted to share a few comments. I would allow him a second or two to just do that before we wrap up. Thank you. Hello, Charles. Hello, Charles.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity given. My name is Charles Gani, and the president and founder of YSEED Foundation in Winneba, the central region of Ghana. Yes, I'm so excited to be part of, I think I'm one of the few men here on the platform, and I find it a privilege. Yes, talking about the Menstrual Hygiene Day. In fact, this year will be our first celebration since my organization started working, and what we've done is to in partnership with Wash International, I believe some of you know Wash International, we've designed the menstrual bracelet, something called the menstrual bracelet, where we'll be using it to create more awareness on it. God willing, on Thursday, we are going to some local radio stations within Winneba. After that, we are moving down to some of the fishing communities to distribute some sanitary pads to young adolescent girls within the areas. Yeah, so as we all said, men are very important actors. We need to rally behind our women and our girls to make sure that they have good menstrual hygiene management. Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity here too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles. Before I wrap up, I would like to once again thank everybody for joining us today. And we at Sisters Diary, we've started this project, menstrual hygiene project, for almost 5 years now. We've been doing that on the ground. We've been working with a lot of sister organizations to achieve this. But we thought it wise that it will be good for us all to come together so we can build a stronger movement. So thank you. And once again, on Wednesday, which is an international day for the menstrual hygiene, we will be having the Ghana Summit, where all the Ghana organizations working around women's reproductive rights, we would come together. And I know a few organizations such as GEM, Girls Excellence Movement, the Tre Foundation, Bridge for Equity, Shalom World Foundation, they've all started petitions. And I feel like because it's individual petitions, we don't get the number of people we need to sign. So how can we merge all these organizations, their petitions together as one, so that we can get a lot of people to sign? We are not just going to create a new one. We are not going to create a new one when other sister organizations also have petitions in place. So we are reaching out to our sister organizations here, the Tre Foundation, GEM, Shalom World Foundation, Bridge for Equity, that how can you, for like the 4 organizations, how can you work together to put all the petitions into one so that we can all distribute and get a larger number of people to sign and present to Parliament? So we'll be doing this on Wednesday for the Ghana Summit, and I believe our sisters from the other sister countries will also be doing that. Ines, Hassan, Caroline, and all those other sisters will be leading the collaboration movement in their respected countries. We will put together this video and we will send it to you via mail. So keep checking your mail. And thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely day.